The following review is targeted for adult fans of the series.
Xaviax tossing some doubt into Adam's mind. I have it written properly. I thought I had it written wrong, but then I looked at the script, I had it written right. It's just wrong up here. Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Kamen Rider Dragon Knight episode review. It's been another hot minute, hasn't it? Now, I did pull one of my completely amazing forgot to upload the episode I just finished editing tricks, so episode 35 did just get posted recently. However, I will readily admit that the file for that episode review was created on October 2nd, and the script for this episode was written on November 9th. 5 weeks later. Now, I admit that so readily because I don't think it was entirely my fault this time. I had just gotten a new computer for video editing and playing video games and etc. I got everything moved over to that computer, got it set up just the way I wanted it, and then the power supply blew. Loudly. Now, I still had the old computer, it still worked, and I used it for editing these videos in the past, except that I had moved everything over to the new computer. Thankfully, that system was still under warranty, so all I really had to do was wait for the new power supply to arrive. And as you can see, it's arrived, installed, and working. The new PC is back up and running. So I opened up the folder where I have the episodes of this show to find this one for review today, and wow, 5 episodes left. It just really hit me. My review of episode 1 of this show was 4 years ago. I actually quit making videos in the midst of this series, but of course I tried to get out and it dragged me right back in. And now we're just here on the doorstep of the ending of this series. And it really is more so for this particular series because, not to spoil too much, but episodes 38 and 39 are actually the 2-part finale of the show, with 40 serving as an epilogue.
Too much talking, too much talking, too much talking, too much talking, too much talking.
Too true. Last time, Ubulon convinced Len to finally trust Adam, which allowed him to successfully betray the Riders by giving Xaviax the virus that they were using to take out his transmitters. Kit is still suspicious of his doppelganger, but will the others finally see the light? Let's take a look at the 36th episode of Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, Dark Deception.
Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel.
Yeah, and make sure you got your notifications set up by hitting that little bell icon.
Right you. What he said was, you can consider checking us out on Patreon or Ko-fi at Orange Ranger Videos. Right you.
I love being able to watch this show full screen on one monitor while I write about it on another monitor. All right, sorry, just had to get that off my chest. Anyway, Hunt is still in that healing trance that Ubulon put him in last time, but he's not doing real well. Maya staying there to watch over him. Len points out that they need to go back to Africa and clean up that whole, there's a transmitter thing still there going on that they gotta go take care of, telling Price and Chance to come along. As Price, Kamen Rider Strike, the one that looks like JTC, is leaving, he tells Hunt to be well. This seems to catch Maya off guard, as if she's finally starting to realize that Price and JTC are not the same person. Alright, this next scene is pretty cool. It's not a terribly difficult thing to do. I've actually done it myself in my story segments. Story segments. I still kind of miss those every now and then. Anyway, Kit and Adam sit down at a table to talk. Again, that's not a terribly difficult shot. The interesting thing is, Kit brings Adam a cup of coffee, which Adam then reaches over and takes. Now that is an interesting trick. Anyway, Kit tells Adam that much like Adam said that Xaviax used his girlfriend to get to him, that Xaviax did the same thing with Kit's dad. Adam asks him how he dealt with that, and he said that he wasn't able to until he remembered something that his dad told him. You can't help someone by doing something that's wrong. The ends don't justify the means. After that, it was easy to do the right thing.
Oh my god! That makes no sense!
Okay, maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's what came to mind to me. This does make a little bit of sense, but I think it's a pretty severe exaggeration by Kit to say that it was easy to do the right thing after that. It's not easy. It takes a great deal of moral conviction to do the right thing in those circumstances. Adam even sarcastically calls him on this, although Kit wouldn't necessarily realize that he was being sarcastic, saying, "Yeah, real easy." They hear the mirror alarm and Case comes in asking if they'll come help her deal with that. Now, I have admitted that I haven't watched very much of Kamen Rider Ryuki at all, so I don't really know if Ryuki and Ryuga, the Kamen Rider Ryuki version of Kamen Rider Onyx, are on screen very much at all, but I get the impression they're not really on screen together very much at all, and when they are, they're probably fighting each other. What I'm getting at is that before Case even finished the question, I knew that one of the two of them wasn't going to go along. In this case, it is Adam who begs out, saying that he has a lot to think about, while Kit eagerly volunteers to go kick some butt. Here we get a case, this is a giant nitpick by me, by the way, but I think it's worth mentioning, of the show maybe realizing that a small detail didn't work and trying to fix it, but causing another problem, again, at least to me. As the three riders teleport to Africa, I feel like they thought that it would be a little unbelievable for the three of them to just pop out of a portal that comes from the car's window, so they had them pop out of the entire side of the car. The problem is the car is a beat-up old rust bucket on the side of the road, and its doors were definitely not a reflective surface. Len moves for them to go after the transmitter, but Price stops him for a moment to talk about Adam, and he makes an amazing point here. Len and Chance think Adam is just fine now. Here, though, is his really good point. Even if Adam's story is true and he was fooled, he's not necessarily morally strong enough to resist the temptation of what Xaviax offers if it's offered a second time. I'm going to tell you right now that the following fight scene was thrown into the episode for filler, to the point that it really feels like it was added into the script after the fact for time. Here's the great part about it, though. Case and Kit treat it just like that. They show up, a bunch of sheer ghosts pop out, and they don't care. They just transform after smiling at each other, and they're just ready to have a good time and kick some butt. Case can be heard giggling at one point, and they just have a good time smacking these things around. They power down and leave, and Case takes the chance to ask Kit about Adam again. He seems convinced now, saying Adam seems to have made the right decision. Case tells Kit to keep encouraging Adam. Meanwhile, Xaviax peeks in on Adam, who has taken a walk to clear his head, sitting on a big stone step staircase thing and having dropped the dragon deck at his feet. Realizing that Adam seems to be having second thoughts and dealing with some guilt, he decides that it's time for some negative reinforcement. Another amazing line.
Time for a little negative reinforcement.
Xaviax then transforms himself into Ubulon and walks through the portal. That's a neat trick, but it does beg a question. If Xaviax can fully shapeshift into different-looking human people, why did he use the same human disguise with all of the riders, just in different clothing and personas, when that could more easily be recognized? Don't get me wrong, like I said, William O'Leary does a fantastic job as Xaviax's human face. Just, it kind of begs the question. Maya comes over to work next to Trent, who wonders why she's not out being Kamen Rider Siren. She explains about giving the deck back to Case to his extreme confusion. I mean, beyond anything else, the deck belongs to Case. Case is Kamen Rider Siren. Maya was only standing in because Case was injured. Once Case gets better, you give the deck back to her because it belongs to her. Maya says that the whole superhero fighting thing just wasn't for her, and not everyone wears superhero PJs to bed each night. Trent says, come on now. I threw those things out like a year ago. And the two of them laugh.
The laugh overed quickly, though.
Michelle walks over and overhears the last part of the conversation, laughing as well, but the other two straighten up in fear like the boss just walked into the room. It is time to humanize Miss Walsh. She sits down and tells them that yes, she knows that she deserved that, and apologizes for all the tough treatment and secrets and, spy type stuff that she's had to do. It is part of her job, but that doesn't make it right to treat people that way. Maya asks why she didn't just ask them for their help to begin with, and she says she could have done that, but they don't exactly trust easily in the spy business. Michelle always thought that Maya was just another hacker. That's what she says, but Trent is the hacker, Maya is the reporter. Anyway, Michelle says that they've taught her that protecting humanity is meaningless if you yourself forget how to be human. Maya asks if this means that the No Men will now be sharing all of this information with the public. That is a bridge too far, but Michelle does confirm that the No Men are not going to stop her from sharing the information. I mean, if nobody confirms what she's saying, it's all just speculation anyway, right? Back over to Adam when Master Ubulon walks up. He says he's very disappointed in Adam. While Adam is apologetic, Ubulon just lays into him, hitting all of his sore spots, talking about how he gave up his world for a girl, while Kit gave up his own father to save his world. He finally says that he isn't going to embarrass Adam in front of the others, but it is time for him to reassess his priorities. He then transforms into the Advent Master.
Kamen Rider.
Oh my god! That makes no sense!
Sorry to use that cutaway gag a second time, but here's the thing. The audience knows that this is actually Xaviax. Xaviax doesn't have the Void Key, the deck that Ubulon uses to transform into the Advent Master. Now, you could argue that it's all just part of the illusion, but I don't really buy that. The two of them actually fight. Advent Master actually uses cards and weapons, which would mean that Xaviax could just illusion himself into being a Kamen Rider. And he's gone through a lot tougher measures than these to be a Kamen Rider in the past. Now, I do know what some of you are thinking, and while it's not the answer to this, it does play a little bit of a part. You see, after Adam transforms into Dragon Knight, Ubulon jumps over him and then poses. This cuts over to Rider footage, and we're not looking at exactly the same suit. This suit is far more faded, much more black and gray with just the palest hints of gold on it, while the suit that Ubulon uses as Advent Master is much more prominently gold. So, what's the deal with that? Well, on Ryuki, first of all, neither of them are actually considered to be a Kamen Rider. They are called alternatives, and that distinction holds even into anniversary series like Kamen Rider Decade. And there are two suits, Alternative and Alternative Zero. Advent Master's primary suit that we see is Alternative Zero, with the lots of gold on it and everything, and a symbol on the forehead that the suit we're looking at now, Alternative, doesn't have.
Oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
Anyway, Adam accuses Ubulon of being fake. Closer than he thinks. No better than Xaviax. Really closer than he thinks. When I wrote this, I didn't realize how on the nose that actually was. So, Advent Master uses cards by seeming to run them through wheels on his arm, but I actually think this is an invention just for Dragon Knight, because when he touches the cards to the wheels, they just kind of disappear in a cloud of like purple flame, and he gets whatever he is activating. In this case, he summoned a sword. He really rips into Adam once more, saying that he is kind to people that deserve it, not people like Adam. Adam starts falling right into Xaviax's trap, saying that he was starting to think that he made the wrong decision, but maybe he made the right move after all. This is kind of sad to me because the show is usually pretty good about fine details like this, but the fight footage here flits back and forth between Alternative and Alternative Zero, the forehead mark really making it easy to tell which is which. Adam knocks the Advent Master down and starts screaming about how hard it was for him to come back to the Kamen Riders, and now that he has, he's not going to be abused or mistreated. But Advent Master says that's always been Adam's problem. He's always wanted special treatment. He comes back and knocks Adam down hard and says that he hopes that he's learned the lesson today. Adam tells him more than he could know. The real Ubulon is doing some kind of slow martial arts kata when Kit and Maya approach. Maya quietly encourages Kit to ask Ubulon something, and he asks the master how he figured out all this stuff about the Kamen Riders. Ventara doesn't seem to be that much more technologically advanced than Earth, but the Riders have all of this healing stuff, healing trance stuff, the Riders, the cards, the weapons, etc., etc. Ubulon says that's because he's not from Ventara, turning off his disguise that reveals he's actually some kind of classic gray-skinned, big black-eyed alien. He reveals something to them that the audience is actually already aware of, that just like Xaviax, he is from the planet Karsh. The planet had a civil war, them being the North and fighting against the South. Making this sound a lot like the American Civil War, but in this case it was the entire planet, so I guess the Northern Hemisphere versus the Southern Hemisphere? Just like our Civil War, the North won, but the planet was trashed, and Xaviax wanted to go find another planet to take all of their population as servants to clean up Ventara. I'm guessing everybody from the Southern Hemisphere was dead. And here's the slightest little ding to the upstanding moral character we've seen from Ubulon so far. He was completely on board with this plan. He traveled to Ventara to put it into action. He invented the transportation transmitters he's now trying to disable. But then he got deathly ill, and he only survived because a Ventaran family took him in and nursed him back to health. He realized it would be a real Richard relocation to capture them all as slaves after that, so he returned to Xaviax and told him he wasn't going to do this plan, they had to do something else. But Xaviax would not listen. So he returned to Ventara and told all of the people about what was actually going on. He invented the Kamen Riders and all of their weapons and cards and etc., etc., and the Ventarans chose their best and brightest, and Adam, and trained them how to use the decks. Ubulon says if Xaviax ends up winning this war, it will be his fault, because Xaviax is using all of the technology that he invented, and he cannot let that happen.
Here's a TV that looks like an apple.
I miss the rains down in Africa. The three find the transmitter, sticking the virus into it, and it shuts down, which I guess means that Xaviax is still playing along because he has the virus at this point. They hear the mirror shimmers, and Len tells Chance to stay and guard the transmitter. Chance humorously saying that he's not really the tech guy, while the other two go to fight. It's 3 monsters this time, and Price says that they're surrounded. You don't really surround 3 monsters with 2 riders. But that's okay, because Chance didn't really listen for long. I guess he figured the transmitter was shut down. It's pretty much over now. Shooting at the monsters from a nearby roof. He plays support. Very nice. Price and Len fire up their final vents while Chance uses a shoot vent. The 3 monsters spin around in a tornado, which in this show really only serves to keep them in one place to get blowed up. The 3 of them return to base, saying that they took care of business. Maya and Price share a very awkward high five, and Maya just might be coming around on him. Adam returns to the base and sees everybody laughing and happy. Seeing Ubulon, his brain of course twists this around to believing that Ubulon told them all what he did to Adam, and all of them laughing at him, rubbing his shoulder and scowling. Trent then announces that he's found the final transmitter, and everybody goes running up to that screen to look at where it is. Adam angrily stomps into the room behind them, glaring at Ubulon. We then cut over to Xaviax, who smiles evilly. And that's it for this one, so let's read the cards. Episode 36, Dark Deception. Pros: the ambiguity of Adam's character, Xaviax's delightful manipulation, and the Maya Price ship slowly building. Cons: Ubulon's backstory is clearly padding. Alternative or zero, pick one. And the action felt a touch random. Very good, but short of great. Dark Deception gets 3.75 cards out of 5. One of the surprisingly fascinating arcs at the end of Dragon Knight is Adam's character. For most of the show, the mentions of the previous Dragon Knight and then Adam paint him in a very bad light. Selfish, self-absorbed, a traitor through and through. Then he actually shows up, and really for the most part, he seems the most similar to his Earth counterpart. The audience does know that he really is the traitor, even the story that he told the writers being made up. But we see here that there's actual real guilt there. He was an invested, dedicated writer, and these were his friends. He's so guilty about this that Xaviax actually has to go back and play on his insecurities to keep him in the fold. And yes, Xaviax's delightful manipulation. Perhaps a little bit desperate, since as he's previously admitted, Adam is the last card in his deck. Xaviax goes straight for the jugular with Adam's insecurities, how the people he cares about feel about his betrayal, not being a good enough Kamen Rider, whether he made the right decision, and the reason that he made it. Again, it was a little weird for Xaviax to become someone else, but you could once again call that pulling another card out of his deck for desperation. That doesn't explain how he transformed into the Advent Master, though. It's a minor point even in this episode, but I really do like how the awkwardness of Maya and Price has carried through and slowly built. I didn't talk about it a lot here, but Maya's reaction to Price's genuine concern and that awkward, almost sort of high five at the end of the episode. Maya really was traumatized by the things JTC did and the way he treated her. It makes it all the more fascinating now to have a man with the exact same face that is genuinely good and heroic around her, and seeing how she reacts to that. What is the difference between padding and a scene that just didn't really have a purpose? The latter is something that just doesn't really work, but clearly was intended to be in the script from the beginning, while the former is something that had to be inserted into the script at a later point to get it to reach an episode length. The scene where Ubulon tells Kit and Maya about his backstory is painfully, obviously, padding. Maya had just had that scene with Michelle that humanized her, and then apparently she decided to get up, run and go find Kit, drag him over to Ubulon, and have him ask how all of this got started. The only real significance to that scene is it actually somewhat damages Ubulon's character, because apparently there was a point where he had to be saved by Ventarans to think that enslaving them was wrong. You know, I praise what Xaviax was thinking in manipulating Adam up and down. He executed his plan beautifully. And if you sense a butt coming, good for you. I already mentioned that it was weird for Xaviax to completely shapeshift instead of just using a disguise, and then it got weirder because he was somehow able to transform into the Advent Master. But then they compounded that by mashing together footage of two similar but not identical riders. That was distracting. Yes, the two of them are nearly identical. Nearly identical. Really, that symbol on the forehead of one of them makes it painfully obvious once you notice it. And just like the pros, the third con is a little token, a little stretchy this week, but the fights in this episode are really kind of thrown in at random. Going after the African transmitter again, because we need to clean up that dangling plot thread from last time. Xaviax tossing some doubt back into Adam's mind when really he didn't need to fight him to actually do that. Kit and Case taking care of some sheer ghosts that showed up for some reason. The action wasn't written in as cohesively, and when combined with that Kit Maya Ubulon scene I mentioned earlier, really kind of makes it feel like this episode was written on the fly. Not bad, not great. Another solid episode. Next time, wow, again, the last episode before the finale two-parter and then the epilogue. Let's take a peek at the 37th episode of Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, The Enemy Within. When Len and Adam are sent to disable the final transmitter, Adam makes his true colors known. That is going to do it for another Kamen Rider Dragon Knight episode review. Thank you, heroes, so much as always for watching, and again, for being patient with these episodes coming out. We're gonna get it to the finish line now, I promise. And then we'll maybe talk about what's coming next, but we're getting ahead of ourselves on that point. Make sure you like this episode by hitting that thumbs up button right down below. While you're down there, leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought of this episode as well as my take of it. And make sure you search for me on the internet at Orange Ranger Videos or Orange Ranger Plays, where I'm currently Let's Playing the SNES classic Chrono Trigger. Until next time, heroes, may the power of the cards protect you. And then the power supply blew up. Loudly. But I had just moved everything over. Mother... Which allowed him to successfully and write about it on another. They need to go back to Africa and go clean up that whole... Sorry. Had to get that off my chest. Anyway, I don't know if Ryuki and Ryuga, he makes an incredible point here. I don't know what it is, though. Len and Price, is that what it is? Yep, Len and Chance, but still. Xaviax doesn't have the Void Key, the deck that Ubulon uses to transform into the Advent Master. And he had his whole plotline of doing a lot more than that to become Kamen Rider Dragon. Much more... not people like Adam. Advent Master knocks Adam down, but Adam knocks him down first. Their planet had a civil war, the North against the South. He invented the transportation transmitters. Fuck, it was only... He traveled to Ventara to put... The three of them were... And the Maya Price ship... You know, I praised Xaviax in what he was...